And there's a situation now that what do they do with him? So Daryl Morey likes him and gave up stuff for him. I made the argument yesterday. What did you give up? A lousy late first-round pick. Ben Simmons was addition by subtraction. Andre Drummond's a backup center. And Seth Curry's a nice rotational pick. I could not sign James Harden to a long contract. I just could not do it. I think the core, Thibault, Maxey, Tobias, Embiid is fantastic. I want flexibility. I want a bench. I'd let Harden go before I would do it, and I know everybody thinks it's nuts. Ooh. I know, but this team has no bench, and if they sign him, zero flexibility. I couldn't sign Harden, and I liked him. I liked the trade. What do you do if you're Philly?
Colin, you are clearly already on vacation because you're thinking in a perfect world. In a perfect world, we just go to Italy and we turn the phone off. That's not the world that Daryl Morey is living in right now. Usually in situations like this, when you make a trade for a player like James Harden, who is on the cusp of signing a new big deal, the agreement is already there in terms of what he's going to get. Now, it may be buyer beware at this point, and Daryl Morey may be regretting whatever promises he may have made, but I dare say the promise has already been made that James Harden is going to be taken care of. And that's where the game inside the game becomes difficult, because if you turn and change your mind on that hurts Daryl Morey going forward with any other stars that he may be, or agents that he may be negotiating with. So you're right. I wouldn't sign him to a long-term deal. But if you've already made that promise, it's awfully difficult to go back on it. And it puts the Philadelphia 76ers in a world of hurt. There's no question about that.
So finally, I like the Phoenix Suns to beat Dallas. Luka's remarkable, but the other...
Look, it's fair, and you bring up a fair point. Well, the first thing is you said analytically cases are being made, and as soon as you say the cases are being made from analytics, we're off the rails, okay? No sensible argument starts with analytics. Analytics may support one, but you don't start there, and that's where we get into trouble. Look, he's only in his fourth year. He's what, 20? He's in his early 20s.
23 or 24.
Can we slow down on the expectations that who have we expected at age 24 to be playing for titles? Yes, he needs more help. Yes, he needs to be in good shape from the beginning. Yes, he needs to utilize the pieces around him better, which I saw him do with this team, and I've seen him do with his national team. So I know he's capable of it. I believe the mindset of Luka Doncic is, and why I take exception to the comparison with James Harden, although everything you said is accurate, that's a ton of similarities, is the mindset. I believe that Luka Doncic will do what is necessary to develop his defensive skills, to be in shape, to figure out how to use the pieces around him, to win a championship. I just always got the sense from the second that James Harden didn't want to stay in Oklahoma City because he was going to be in a complimentary role, that it wasn't about winning championships. It was, I want to be a star, and I want the ball in my hands. I believe Luka will make those adjustments, but all of my media brethren who every preseason have him as the MVP favorite, you're setting him up to fail because you're setting the bar way too high for where he and the Dallas Mavericks are. And by the way, it's a Dallas Mavericks team that's won one championship 12 years ago in their history. So this idea that Luka Doncic is failing if he's not competing for a championship is simply setting the bar too high too soon.
So it's public now, of course, everything with the Lakers is that Phil Jackson is being consulted in the search, which I think is interesting because LeBron's camp, they are not fans of Phil Jackson. I don't know if Phil cares much about them either, but there's an understanding in the league, public thing a few years ago, something Phil had said, it really bothered LeBron and his camp. And so everybody in the league knows that, and the Lakers are still consulting Phil Jackson. Am I reading into this right, that the Lakers are saying, we're taking back our franchise, and we really don't care if it bothers you. I mean, otherwise you'd keep it private, wouldn't you? And isn't that the message? That's what I'm gleaning from it.
I don't know that. I think it would be really difficult to keep that private, especially with the close relationship that Jeannie and Phil have. And look, I started laughing when you mentioned this simply because LeBron James holds grudges like nobody else. He can be really petty. I mean, we're talking about a...
By the way, so I see Vogel got fired, according to The Athletic, because he couldn't make Russell Westbrook work. And I thought, man, being an NBA coach is a rough job. What did you make of that story out there by The Athletic?
If that's why he got fired, then he has a case to recoup his money or to get his job back, because that seems to be wholly unfair. You're going to give a defensive-minded coach, a coach whose expertise is on the defensive end, you're going to say that you weren't able to make it work with a guy who is an offensive player and hasn't been a good defensive player for years. That's why you got fired. I mean, this entire roster was built from an offensive standpoint. You saw what Frank Vogel was able to do when you gave him defensive-minded players. He won a championship in the bubble or whatever. So to me, I'm not putting it, whether it's the relationship with Russ Westbrook or anything else, this is not on Frank Vogel. It was a poorly constructed team, and it was a poorly constructed team especially for a coach like Frank Vogel.
Dylan Brooks suspended for Game 3 against the Warriors. I kind of defended him on the foul. I said, I know it's a flagrant. I get it. I don't like the result of the foul. But I think Memphis was trying to kind of put a stake in the sand and say, we're not going to be intimidated by you guys. Draymond Green did his thing. Our tough guy's going to do our thing. And we're the youngest team left in the playoffs. You're the old guys, the elder statesman. We're not going to be intimidated in this series at all. That was my take, wrong or right. What do you make of the suspension? Fair or not? Your thoughts?
I'm okay with a one-game suspension. I'm not in the crowd of people who are saying, oh, it should have been much more. It was so egregious. This is the thing that Gary Payton has to understand, first of all, starting with Gary Payton. And I appreciate that even his dad said, look, if he tried to dunk on me and clown me the way he has some guys, I would be going after him. This is the distinction between dunking on somebody and dunking on somebody and clowning on them. You can do that during the regular season, and you might get away with it. But in Game 1, he dunked on Desmond Bane, and being slick and not tapping his head, which is now a taunting penalty, and he kind of goes to tap it, and then he scratches it, and he gets away with it. But the message is still sent. I'm clowning you. I just dunked on you. That works in the regular season. When you're playing in a playoff game, you don't go on to the next city and play the next team. You play that very same team. And Dylan Brooks is cut from the same cloth as Draymond Green. He really is their fire starter. He's their emotional leader. John Morant handles a big part of that. But Dylan Brooks is, for lack of another term, he's their enforcer. So it surprised me not at all that he would be the guy to say, look, you're not going to dunk and clown on us in this series. You got away with it in Game 1. We're going to put a stop to it. It is unfortunate that Gary Payton got hurt. But I look at what Draymond Green did. Draymond Green hit Brandon Clark in the head on the first time, the first attempt, and then yanked him by the jersey, pulled him down on the second attempt. He deserved his flagrant 2. And I would say that the yanking a guy out of the air by his jersey, maybe not as dirty. I hate to use the word dirty, because part of the whole Dylan Brooks timing was, you can see he's got a beat on him from the very beginning.
Yeah.
And John Morant gets in Gary Payton's way, and so he ends up not dunking, and Dylan just comes in and says, I'm not going to let you get anything here. So I'm not going to defend it, but I certainly understand it.
So it's interesting. We're getting a sense, and it's fairly clear, that, and this is what happens at 32 or 33 years old when a pro athlete neglects his game, his body, or both. They fall off a cliff pretty fast. James Harden is now not nearly as dynamic as he was even a year ago, and it's obvious. He's never been a grinder like a D. Wade or a LeBron in the offseason or a Brady or Russell Wilson. Okay, so this is what he is now. He's a 3.